Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast. I'm Tara, and today I am joined by Ashley Williams.
Hey, guys.
And we are here to open our hearts and spill our guts and talk about everything we love about the Portland Trail Blazers and the NBA. Ashley, how's things going?
Oh, wonderful. It's been kind of rainy, but other than that, just enjoying Portland for what it has.
You know, the Blazers have a new in-arena video before the game, and it, highlights Portland rain, and it's awesome, because it just, there's the loud music, and then, the thunderous rain is coming down, and I love how it just kind of captures, how everybody feels right now. The rain is a good metaphor.
I love the rain. As long as it's not snowing, I will take the rain any day.
Well, what else have you been up to?
Sports. Basketball season is always busy and packed, whether it's high school, college, NBA. But I've been doing actually a lot of color commentating at some high school basketball games.
Oh, that's fun. Have you been doing local games?
Yeah, so I've done Central Catholic, so it's high school boys. I actually did girls as well. Central Catholic, Oregon City. I did a Park Rose, Putnam game. It's really fun, actually. Yeah. I didn't think I would like it, but then I guess I was like, wait, you love to talk, so this actually works out.
Yeah, how does it go? How do you get ready for a game, and then, how do you get in the flow?
So typically in a perfect world, I would love to always do sideline, but, just equipment and staffing isn't always there. So it's always an option, especially when the game's already streaming, to hop on and do color. I'm not really a big play-by-play, so that's more of telling everything that's going on. But color is more of, somebody makes a move, makes a cut to the basket, and you kind of explain why that happened or why it worked or why that player is doing what they're doing, or maybe a little bit of background on players. So how I usually get ready for it is I know a lot going on in the high school scene, so I kind of am already educated on the teams. But I go early. I watch. I see how they play. I see how they warm up. I see who's not playing. I see, you kind of observe, and then you kind of just let it play out. It's really fun.
So, the beginning of the season, Joe and I went to the opening night, and we tried taping an example of play-by-play and color commentary. It was super. I really enjoyed the play-by-play because I kind of felt like you don't have to think, you just have to say. You just are reacting to what is going on. But then I had a really hard time thinking about, when to jump in, when to say anything. So, who are you working with, and how's the rhythm going?
So I'm working with this guy named Dave Hall, and he was actually a lawyer a long time ago, so he always knows what to say, but he's been doing this for probably over 20 years. So he's really good, and he's really easy to kind of just jump in. Sometimes I don't want to interrupt him because he says such good things, but he always kind of lets me have the green light. And I don't know, when you work with someone, I do shows with him too. I host local sports shows with him. So we kind of work well together now. And we've been working together for about a year, and we just mesh well. I'm more of the peppy, talkative, oh, look at that. And he's more of the level-headed, trying to keep the stats going. So we work really well together.
Well, speaking of peppy and level-headed, we haven't really had a chance to talk about the new broadcast crew for the Blazers, and they've been in business now for, 50 games at this point are we into?
Almost a full season.
So what are your impressions of the new broadcast crew now that we've had a chance to see them and they've had a chance to settle in?
A lot of people ask me about that, and because I'm like when I watch a game, I always have people, oh, let's go watch the game. I'm like, no, I got to go home and watch it because I love to hear the reporters and broadcasters and media crew. I love that. So a lot of people have asked that, and I love them. Like, I think they are so great. They're so professional, not throwing anything at Mike and Mike. But when I listen to a Blazer game now, I forget that I'm even watching like a Blazer local game. I feel like I'm listening to a national game every single time because they're so educated, not only on the Blazers, but on everyone else that they play.
You know, for me, it took me a while to warm up to them. You know, to be honest, it's not like I had any particular affinity for Mike and Mike. I mean, I did because that's who I'd been listening to for years, but I was totally open to, you know, having new people coming in. And, I think at the beginning it was a bit rough because the new guys, you know, so Kevin Calabro. So I grew up in Portland, and anytime somebody from Seattle is shoved at me, I'm a little bit defensive. So I had to overcome that in the first place. I was very excited about Lamar Hurd, somebody who had been around Oregon a lot, and he kind of, you know, knew the community, so kind of would know how to fit in, you know, a little bit and make his commentary resonate with us locals. But I did feel, you know, you have to get used to other people's phrasing and phraseology, and like, every time Kevin Calabro says, taking it to the cup, and I'm like, can't you come up with a different word? So there's like little things that kind of stick in my brain. But
I
overall,
think that's being like a fan.
Right.
I know that because like sometimes I'll even listen to, and I love Brooke, and she says one phrase as of late so much, and I just like, I cringe. And it's not even because she's like, oh, she probably doesn't even say that much, but I think I just watch so much Blazer stuff. I always hear that phrase.
I know, it's funny. It's funny the things that really stick out. And yeah, taking it to the cup and turns. Like now suddenly we don't get turnovers anymore. They're all turns. Like what happened to the over part? And even like in the graphic now, it just says number of turns. I'm like, is that what we're calling them now? We don't even call them turnovers anymore. They're just turns. But, you know, all in all, I think that they have become more comfortable in the community. They've become more used to the players. And I like it when a little bit of their enthusiasm and fandom creeps through just a little bit. Like when something really exciting, when one of our players does something really great and you can hear it in their voice, them getting excited. I like it when that sneaks through. And I know it's good to have somebody who's generally impartial, and you don't want someone who's a complete homer. But I feel like a little personal victory every time, like, Kevin Calabro gets, like, really excited about something that Mo Harkless says. Like, a little personal victory there.
I really like them. I think it's a really good fit. I'm really happy with everything they've done, and this season hasn't been the easiest for anyone. It's been pretty rough, and I think that they have stuck through and done a really good job through the whole thing. Yeah,
I think, you know, we're all starting to get used to them now, and you know, we're ready to move on. Well, let's move on and talk about what I think is probably the biggest news about the Blazers right now. If you have another idea, sing out. But I kind of think the biggest news right now is Evan Turner's injury. That threw me for a loop anyway. What were your thoughts when you learned that he was going to be out?
Yeah, that's just a really hard loss. You don't want to see anyone ever get an injury, especially someone like Evan Turner, who is a role player for the Blazers, and that does mess up the lineup. And I know that I was listening a little bit yesterday. Terry Stotts, he said he was racking his brain trying to get this lineup right, and finally, when it kind of seemed right, Evan goes down. And like I said, I'm not 100% fan of Evan Turner, but you don't want to see anyone get hurt, and especially with a right hand, your shooting hand, that's terrible. So I think that was another kind of dapper on the Blazers.
Yeah, he talked a little bit about, and when I think he answered some questions yesterday, and he talked about when he was injured in college, he actually broke a bone in his back in college, and they thought he was going to be out for a couple of months. He ended up coming back in 4 weeks. I think Evan Turner's one of those players who, I mean, they all want to get back as fast as they possibly can. They're probably like calling their trainers like the minute that's like, okay, we're going to check in, and they probably are on the phone like, okay, am I ready? So I think he definitely wants to get on the court as soon as possible. I read a little bit about metacarpal injuries, because the metacarpal is the bone that connects basically your wrist area to your fingers. So it's the actual part that actually makes up your hand. And the third is the one that is connected to your middle finger. And one of the fortunate things about that is it's one of the easier ones to immobilize. It doesn't move around a lot, not as much as your outside bones, which, are part of your wrist, more connected to your wrist. So, if someone's going to have a metacarpal injury, that's one of the better places to have it. It also, didn't get displaced or anything, so it doesn't require surgery. He just has to wait for his bones to knit back together. And for some reason in my mind, I have Evan Turner as slightly Terminator-like. I imagine that he's stitching himself together back even faster than normal. I just have this thing in my head about him like that.
Well, I think that's a good thing, but also I don't think there's anything to super rush for. Everyone's like, but if the Blazers make the playoffs, then he'll be ready for that, and that's fine. But like I said, look for what we're doing right now, and I mean, just looking at the rest of the season, it's going to be a tough to win out. So I think that he should just focus on the bigger picture and just trying to be healthy and positive. What do you think about the lineup they went ahead and went with last night then?
Yeah, I kind of thought that they were going to just go back to familiarity and just go back to Aminu and Harkless. And so when I saw that it was, he stayed with Noah Vonleh and he inserted Harkless, I think it worked out okay. I mean, one of the things that is most disappointing to me is that they were finally making progress, and now we're going to have to kind of reset that button. But so as far as the lineup went, I think I might be in the minority, but I kind of like it when Noah Vonleh starts, because I think it forces everybody to focus on communication right away. I think when you have a younger player in there with less experience who you're trying to bring along and develop, they're obviously trying to develop him. They don't have him in the lineup because he's maybe the best person in that position right now, but they're trying to develop him. And I think when you start him, they all have to immediately be thinking about communication. So I like that they kept Noah Vonleh in. And Aminu coming off the bench had a great night last night. What did you think about that?
I liked him. I thought that he was going to be player of the game. He was playing hard, and I'm really disappointed. I'm sad because I really thought the Blazers were going to win last night, and I don't want to be that person who's I thought the Blazers were going to win, but everything was looking so good, and then they kind of lost it at the end, obviously, but it looked well, and even Pat Connaughton, he got some playing time, and, he was kind of thrown into a role, and I think he did his job. But it just, I don't know, it was just very frustrating. They kind of let it go.
I think a big part of it was lacking Evan Turner because I think they were gassed. I think CJ and Dame, one of the great things about having Evan Turner in
and
that
it was against
lineup,
Boston, he would have he would have went off.
Well, yeah. And, Evan having these last 10 games, knowing that Evan Turner was going to be chasing the primary ball handler around with the first unit, that was, it took pressure off of Dame and CJ, and they didn't have that. They played a couple of extra minutes each last night, but you could tell they were tired, I thought. In my opinion, they looked like they were gassed, and I think that was because of the lack of Evan Turner, and it wasn't for Aminu's lack of trying. That guy played his heart out last night. So how do you feel?
He was doing different moves that I hadn't seen, I think, ever.
He was doing, I've. Do
you know what I mean? He just looked so versatile. I don't know. I was just all about it. I really was. I was over here Googling him,
yeah. About a month ago, I decided to just give up and embrace Aminu, the ball handler. Because I know whenever he gets the ball on one end and you just go, oh God, he's going to take it all the way to the other end. It's it's a terrifying, you don't know what's going to happen. But I've just decided to embrace it because a lot of time it works out, and I think partly is because the other team is going, oh my God, what's he doing? And then nobody can quite tell what's happening. But I've just decided to embrace it, and so I really enjoyed watching it last night. He had 26 points last night. He was 8 for 12 in shooting. He was 3 for 5 from the 3-point line, 7 for 9 from the line. He was finding the cup last night.
Yeah, he was playing really well. That's funny. Yeah, he was playing really well.
Well, he also had 5 rebounds, an assist, and he only had two turnovers. And okay, yeah, one of them was really important and at the end. But considering how much he was handling the ball, I thought that was amazing that he finished with 2 turnovers, and he only had 1 foul. So
yeah,
I was excited to see him break out. So, the other thing, to get back to Evan Turner's injury, the other thing about it, well, there's a couple more things about it that I'll say. One is I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the Evan Turner fashion show, because I love seeing how he dresses. He looked amazing last night. Did you see his outfit?
Yeah, I actually do appreciate that too.
Those boots were so cute. Oh my gosh. They were so cute. And
Evan Turner, if you're listening out there, take us shopping.
No kidding. Oh my gosh. But
I want to know where he buys his clothes.
Yeah, well, I remember when I was reading about him before he first came, there were a few articles that I read about him, like, in his enjoyment of fashion. He definitely enjoys the finer things in fashion. So
wow.
anyway,
I appreciate it. He even, like, accessorizes.
Yes.
Yeah, he does. He is up there in the fashion world for me.
I wonder if he has a stylist or he does it himself.
He might be his own stylist.
And now he's got the time. Well, they interviewed him yesterday, and they were asking him, like, what are some of the drawbacks, to being injured right now. And he said that it's because he couldn't get his shirts on over his coat on over his cast, so he had to wear his robe outside. Which I thought was hilarious. But the other thing about his injury is it occurred right before All-Star break.
Right.
So, he has a little bit of extra time to recover. I kind of wonder, I mean, you said that you're not, like, the biggest Evan Turner fan, but I know that you've come around to appreciating, like, the role he does as a role player. I wonder what the Evan Turner naysayers are going to say now. Like, I wonder, because honestly, the first half, I didn't really notice that Evan Turner was gone, but the second half of the game last night, I was like, whoa, we're really missing him. And so all the people who think that Evan Turner was such a terrible addition, I wonder if they're going to change their tune after this, or if they're feeling confident enough about their position that they're going to be like, yep, he's, we're not really missing much.
Here we go. Yeah. I think he's done enough that it's not that situation for me. I don't think it's like, finally, like, I'm not happy that he's hurt. I think that he is kind of like a dog. He does fight. So I think that would have been a nice element to see last night.
Yeah, I enjoy watching him work. I feel like he works real hard. I very rarely see him take a play off. And again, having him be able to be in the lineup chasing the primary handler. I mean, last night they had to fill that role by committee. So sometimes it was Alan Crabb, sometimes it was Mo Harkless, and sometimes they did a good job of it, and a lot of times, they weren't able to get into their defensive rhythm. And of course, Isaiah Thomas, because he's Isaiah Thomas, went off and
38
had an amazing
34
had an amazing night. But you know what, I haven't listened to it yet, but I saw a podcast pop up in my list of podcasts that the title was something about, like, why can't Isaiah Thomas play defense? And so I was like, hey, at least there's one other player in the league who has a strong offensive game that other people are complaining about his defense.
Well, and that it just comes with it, I think. I think we saw a little bit of Dame getting frustrated last night because he was playing pretty good defense. He was attempting to, and he was getting calls and then wasn't getting calls offensively. So it was just a lot of frustration, I think. But also we're living in the Isaiah Thomas hype right now. So.
Right. We really are. Right. Like, it's odd, and I wouldn't have thought it 7 months ago, but it's Isaiah Thomas's and Al-Farouq Aminu's world right now, and we're just living in it.
Seriously.
Okay, so we mentioned the All-Star break coming up. That is, was that next weekend? That seems it's coming up real fast. What are your thoughts on the All-Star game? Are you a fan of the whole All-Star weekend?
I am a fan. I want it to come to Portland. Now, I think there's only 2 places who have not hosted or not being considered, and I think Portland's one. But I would love it to come here. But it's in New Orleans. I actually thought about going. It was I was really close to going this year. But there's other things that I chose instead. But I do like the All-Star game, and I think that it should be a fun thing. It kind of is discouraging when I see who gets chosen for the All-Star games, just for the simple fact where it's like, it is a fan vote. And you can't decide who the fans want to send. But then I see LeBron's been 13 times, and that kind of pisses me off. I love LeBron. I'm like the biggest LeBron fan ever, but I just feel like it's more of like fun and cheesy for younger players.
Right.
So that bothers me a little bit. Another thing that bothers me is that 4 Golden State Warriors players are going. That bothers me as well. And I get, like I said, whole fan thing, whatever. I'm not knocking Steph, not even knocking KD, because you can't. But that also bothers me. With that being said, I'm not going to sit here and say Dame snubbed, because this just isn't the right year. But it's a hard thing thinking about the All-Star game. I'm more in it for the contest and skills and celebrity game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The celebrity game. They always do some weird format for that, don't they?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got CJ going this year. How do you think he's going to do?
So I did read an article about how he was disappointed in how he performed last time around. And he actually said the only reason why he was going this year is because his girlfriend had a test. So they couldn't go on vacation. Which I thought was funny too, but I think it's a good experience. And he's still young. I think it'll be fun for him to go out there and, show what he's made of. And his name's a lot bigger than I feel like it has ever been. So I think this will be really good for him and really good for the Blazers, just to kind of represent for us.
Yeah, and I think CJ is always feeling CJ. So I think he'll bask in it and he'll have a good time. He's been shooting great, so like why not have it be CJ's year, right? Why not go for it, CJ? There's one other Blazer who's going to be participating in All-Star Game weekend. Did you know that Myers is going?
Oh, Myers.
He is going to actually coach the Basketball Without Borders camp. So he's not actually participating in any of the games or events. But every year they have this 2-day camp over All-Star Weekend called Basketball Without Borders, and it's for international high school aged players. I guess it's co-ed, and this year they're bringing in 67 players from 32 countries, and Myers is going to be one of the coaches, which I think is pretty cool.
Myers looks like a coach. Yeah, I could see, like,
Why do you say that?
In later years, I don't know, I could just see him being a coach because he's kind of fiery. Like, he's not like really, he doesn't have like a bad temper or anything like that, but he gets fiery at certain moments. But he's very like mild-mannered too. I could just see him being a coach. And I bet you he's very like a technical, like he seems like he's very like a brain thinking guy. So I could see him being a coach.
Yeah, well, I know he really gets into his camps that he has. He loves those, and I know that, so why not take it to another level? And I know that the NBA Players Association has, coach development programs, and, so maybe him or some of the other Blazers will end up going through all of that. Some of the other coaches are going to be Wayne Ellington, Justin Holiday, Thon Maker, who is himself a participant. Thon. And then Emmanuel Mudiay, and then Sheck Diallo. I don't know anything about him. Do you know who he is?
Really great player.
Okay. Who does he play for? Is he Pelicans? I think he's either Pelicans or Hornets. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Not Hornets. Maybe Pelicans.
Okay.
Yeah, not Hornets. I watched him play a lot when he was younger, so.
Well, I think that's pretty cool for Myers Leonard to go, and he gets to, he'll be there participating in some of the events too. All the kids who are participating in the Basketball Without Borders, they get to go to the game, and they get to go to the rookie game, they get to go to the skills contest. That should be fun. Hey, I have a question for you. This is like a pop quiz, so you don't have to answer. No pressure or anything. And I totally did not know the answer to this until I just looked it up. So it's more of a, did you know? So how many countries do you think are represented in the NBA?
That's a good question. I'm going to say 12.
41. Isn't that amazing?
I love things like that because you never would think that. So now after I hang up, I'm gonna have to go look all those up.
Yeah. So there's 113 foreign-born players 113 of around 450. So that's like a quarter of the league.
So 113 currently?
On opening night.
Oh, okay.
Had a press release that they had 113 players who were born in different countries. From 41 different countries.
That's a lot, but I believe it. Honestly, if you go through every team and you think about probably like 3 of the starters are foreign.
Yeah, I mean, they have, I can't remember, who has the most, but maybe
foreign born.
I think it's the Jazz. Yeah, the Jazz have the most. But anyway, I hadn't really thought about that. But, by contrast, the NFL is 96.5% American born. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So I don't know, I found
football. Yeah, football is an American sport
for sure. I mean, it makes sense that NFL would be largely American, but that was like a big difference. So anyway, yeah, a couple interesting things going on that are Blazer related for the All-Star weekend. I personally am always a fan of players getting rest on All-Star weekend. I just want the guys to rest. I just want them to be ready to finish strong so that we can, have a strong last part of the season.
That's where I agree. That's why I think that the younger players should just never tone down things. Like, you're a rookie. Go have fun at All-Star. You're young. You want to do this. But if you're like a LeBron or a Dame, you just want to relax. Like, you just need that break. Enough time is never enough.
Right, yeah. Especially if you shoulder a big load for your team. Yeah. I mean, I always remember Nicholas Batum always came back so refreshed after, and you know that he lived it up during, he found a beach and just enjoyed himself during all
Relax.
Yeah. So, we'll have a little bit less basketball in the NBA coming up, active games in the next week or so. But this is like height of college ball season. I've been watching more college ball this year than I ever have. And, I thought, this would be a good time maybe for us to talk about some of the players that the Blazers might actually be looking at this year. We have 2 draft picks this year, at least at this point. Who knows what will happen by the trade deadline. But right now we have 2. And every day it's looking more and more like we're going to be at least somewhere in the middle of the first round. It's possible we could keep creeping up higher. But yeah, since there's so much college ball going on around now, it's like likely that you can turn on the TV and you'll be able to flip to somebody who is on the Blazers radar. I don't know. Do you have anybody that you want to talk about to start with? I mean, you watch a ton, so I know that you've got your eye on a couple of the top ranked guys.
Yeah, I actually went to the Oregon-Arizona State game last Thursday, so that was really fun.
Was that the blowout?
No, that was by 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was by 3. That was a good game. I didn't go Saturday to the game, the blowout game. It was actually a morning game. Mm-hmm. So I actually really wanted to go, but I was like, not making that trek to Eugene. So didn't happen. But man, there's a lot of good college basketball going on. I also watched last night, North Carolina and Duke pulled it out.
Okay, so last night, I have to tell you about this. Last night in the arena, Mason Plumlee got to choose the warm-up music, and he chose the Duke fight song right after, because Duke won that game, didn't they?
Yes.
So Mason was out there just running around, singing the song at the top of his lungs.
I've said this before, but the Duke family, like if you went to Duke, if you're going to Duke, if you're at Duke, they're so tightly knitted. It's crazy. Like last year at the Nike Hoop Summit, Gerald Henderson was there, Mason was there, and then there was 3 Duke commits. Like, they're all over there talking, taking pictures, little family. I'm like, this is so great. But, yeah, so they're proud, too.
Right.
I see the bets on Twitter.
I wanted to know how Ed Davis was going to react to it, because Ed Davis went to North Carolina,
yeah.
And he was laughing at Mason. He was just shaking his head and laughing. He was taking it in good humor.
Well, it was a close game the whole game, and then it was really close, like tied by 2, and then Duke just took off. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was a really great game. But one of the players in that game, he's up pretty high, probably number 4, Jason Tatum. Mm-hmm. He's like a small forward guard type player. Saw him play a lot, but man, I was saying last night, I was like, if the Blazers could get Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a all-around good player, really good size, already really good size. He's a freshman too. So.
Okay. I was curious about that. I looked at, a couple of mock drafts and a couple of just like, rankings about, who they think's gonna go in the top. And there's a lot of one and dones, a ton of, 1 or 2 year players. One of the things one thing we can't do is we can't knock Neil Olshey's draft history. The dude knows the draft, and whatever else people might say about him and his abilities to like land free agents or make the trades, the guy knows draft. And if you look back all the way to his history with the Clippers, in 2008, he drafted Eric Gordon. In 2009, of course, he drafted Blake Griffin. 2010, he got Al-Farouq Aminu and Eric Bledsoe. Oh, and I forgot to say about 2008, he also drafted DeAndre Jordan, number 35. I mean, that was a pretty brilliant pick, if you ask me.
Yeah, those are all really good picks.
Yeah, so, I think, we can go in pretty confident that whatever pick we get, Neil Olshey I'm confident Neil Olshey is going to make the most out of it. But one thing I'm really curious about is since Neil Olshey has been with the Blazers, he tends to take players with more experience. So he took 4 years, Damian Lillard 4 years, CJ McCollum 4 years, Alan Crabb 3 years. Myers is an exception; he was only 2. But I'm wondering, like, that didn't seem to be the case when he was with the Clippers, but since he's been at the Blazers, he keeps taking these older players. Do you suppose that's just total coincidence? Do you suppose that's like a team kind of, thing that the team likes the older players? Do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I think that it's always a good thing to go with the older, more experienced player because there's so many one and dones. There's so many young players. The talent's there. They're very athletic, but it takes time. And it just depends on what you already have. And looking at the Blazers, I don't necessarily want another younger player. I think that that's just more work. And at this point, we kind of want someone with experience, an older player who has more, I wouldn't say more maturity, really. I think that can come at any age. But I think someone who just kind of been through it already. Mm-hmm. And maybe if you kind of think about it, pretty much if you're in the draft, you're probably going to go to a bigger school who would probably have success in the NCAA tournament down the road. But I also think that maybe you have to look at if they were a leader on their team. There's so many other things that come into it, and it must be the most nerve-wracking thing ever when you are going to draft someone because you want to make the right choice, but also take into consideration they are so young. Like everybody's so young in the draft.
Yeah. And even our last 2 draft picks, or guys that we acquired through the draft, Layman and Connaughton. Let's see, Connaughton 4 year, Layman, I think he was 3 years. Older guys, and I just look at the the list of the top 30 right now, and the vast majority of them are younger. So I think it'll be interesting to see. And the other thing that's interesting about this draft, I think, is that there's a ton of point guards. Mm-hmm. And one thing that we have not been, going about no one's really been complaining about lack of point guard. I mean, it's interesting. We have this weird point guard situation with Dame and CJ, and then we have, Shabazz kind of like in the background. So, do you think he's going to go with best available player? If it's a point guard, we'll take a point guard. Or do you think he's going to look for a little bit of situational?
Well, I was looking at a little bit of the draft predictions, I guess. And the 2 players that the Blazers is lining up or it looks like they're going to get is TJ Leaf and Donovan Mitchell. Mm-hmm. Donovan Mitchell is a guard. So, and I saw a lot of positive comments as opposed to, oh, we don't need any more guards, but it did kind of say, a relief guard. Mm-hmm. And I see that and it worries me because I feel like we have a lot of that guard position already on the Blazers. But if we had someone in a secured role, that might not be a bad idea. Like, I kind of like the Blazers when we had Mo Williams. Mm-hmm. With that secured guard. Like, there was no question that he was a backup guard. You know what I mean? Like, we couldn't maybe throw him in over here or maybe throw him in over there. It's like he knew what role he had. So that's the only way that I'll be okay with acquiring another guard.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Blazers need to run from that kind of in-between player. I feel like we have like 4 of those.
Yeah.
So it needs to be either like a set point guard or like a set center.
Yeah. Well, when I was reading about Donovan Mitchell, yeah, so he's a sophomore from Louisville, and yeah, he's a guard. He's a 6'3", 210 guard. And when I was reading about him, okay, so they say he's normally a shooting guard, but lately has been pulled into a starting point guard role. He's not a great shooter, but he's getting better. He's a Rick Pitino player, so he's had a lot of value. Like the value of defense has been drilled into him. So that would be nice to have a guard who can come and bring the defense. But when I was reading his description, it reminded me a lot of CJ. It reminded me a lot of somebody who would do that same kind of thing where he'll play shooting guard, but then spell the point guard. And I just don't know if Terry Stotts is ever going to go back to that. Like, we just have a straight up backup point guard, you know?
It's especially hard because positions and roles in the league are changing so much. I don't even know if we should even call positions anymore, because you see someone who's 6'9" as a point guard, but they can also play this. They can also, so it makes it really hard. But yeah, see, it makes it really hard. But yeah, I kind of am scared for the word guard when I think of new players with the Blazers.
So what do you think about TJ Leaf? He plays for UCLA. So have you seen any UCLA games live yet this year?
You know, I was supposed to go to the UCLA UW game because Lonzo Ball and Markelle Fultz are probably the number 1 and 2 guards going to be taken in the draft. But I haven't watched any. I haven't been in person. Watched a little bit of the game. Clearly, I watched the Oregon UCLA game last night, but I didn't. Nothing really stood out to me about TJ, and maybe that was just because I wasn't really focusing on him. But like I said, when I hear of the Blazers maybe getting a center or a forward, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But him being young, that worries me.
Say, when I was reading about TJ Leaf, one of the things that people did talk about him was they thought that he needed some more development time, and he might benefit from another year in the league. So I don't know if we would be taking somebody just for, development purposes, or if we would want somebody who's more matured. Let's see, another player that has piqued my interest is Justin Patton from Creighton. He's a center. He's somebody who's quickly ascended up the ranks. Like, he wasn't really on people's radar until he's kind of quickly started to rise. And he's one of those guys that we would maybe get with our higher pick. Actually, 2 drafts that I looked at that were done like right at the beginning of February had the Blazers taking him. He's a 6'11" center. He's only 215 pounds. So, like, for reference, Noah Vonleh's 6'10" and weighs 240.
Yeah.
So he's an inch taller and 25 pounds lighter.
Well, and that's something that they can bulk up. And you can just imagine if he's that now, just probably think of what he was in high school.
Right. Yeah. Well, he's got, nice long limbs and everything. And he's a player who can both back down and he can face up, which is nice. He's got a post game. So,
Love that.
That would be, a nice addition to our thing. But I don't know. I think it's interesting that this year we're back in the draft conversation, because that was last year, we had to buy in at the last minute or whatever. So kind of fun to know who to keep an eye out for as March Madness comes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's always a good thing to always be checking and looking and just, kind of educate yourself on what names are circulating. And then of course when March Madness and Final Four and all that comes through, then these teams who make it through, we highlight and we see them and we are really excited about those players, because then we might see them in the draft too. Then people, that always determines if they're going to stay another year, if they're going to go, what their next move is too. So it's really exciting, but there's a lot of things that can change in these last couple months. So don't buy in on anything. Nothing's set, obviously, but it is good to kind of, scroll through, check some names out, educate yourself, and especially with the NBA season kind of coming to a close, or, All-Star break, kind of laying off on the games. I would say watch some college games and just see who's showing out, see who's doing good, and see who we might get next year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and like I previously said, I do have a lot of trust in Neil Olshey when it comes to the draft. So I'm kind of excited, actually, to see who he comes up with, because I don't know that he's been too far off base. We've had some players who, were drafted high, like Myers, who's still, maybe the jury's still out on how he's gonna end up, but I think he's gonna be a role player for somebody. And whether or not 11 was or whatever, 12, was the right number to take him, he's still gonna be around the league, and he's gonna have an impact on some team, ours or somebody else's.
Well, talking about drafts, Isaiah Thomas was the last draft pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that can't really determine what they're going to do. And I mean, you never know. Or players who decide to stay another year who are a huge impact on their team in the league. So you never know. And I'm not saying draft picks, it doesn't determine it all, but, it's just, there's a lot of factors that go into it. So you can't completely buy in just because of what number they go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we should probably start wrapping it up here pretty soon, but I guess my question is, what are you going to be looking for the Blazers, as we, finish up the season? We're more than halfway through. What are some of the things you're going to be watching for as we wind up the year?
I think we can look for a lot of different combinations, especially with Evan out now. We're just going to see a lot of things change. And I think that will also cause a lot of people to step up and try to really, this is the time to show your skills. Not to play scared and to worry about being traded or being let go or anything like that. But I just think that it's kind of like you have nothing to lose. Might as well just go out swinging. Not saying that they're going out like that, but I think we'll see a lot of people step up. And I don't want to see discouragement because they might not make the playoffs or, I don't want to see that discouragement because I think that every team, every franchise goes through rebuilding, and I really want to see this rebuilding for the Blazers.
Yeah, and I think we're only halfway through the season. We can't tell whether or not our 3 or 4 year plan has panned out yet. We really, really have to give it time. So I think that's a great point that we're going to see a lot of things that we haven't seen yet. I like it when Terry shortens the rotation a bit, but with Evan Turner's injury, that might not happen for a little while longer now, because he's got to find out who's going to, are we going to see, as we've been alternating between Myers and Davis games, are we going to now start alternating between Connaughton and Layman games? Where, he tries to figure out which player is right in which situation. We aren't having a great year. Our record is not what we wanted it to be. We're still a long ways out from 500 even. We're still out of the playoffs right now. But for the most part, I've found it entertaining. I wish that we could have wins, but I'm still entertained on a nightly basis. There's nights that, guys like Alpha Rukaminu can turn it on like that. As long as things like that are happening, I'm enthusiastically turning on. There's a couple of weeks in there where I would say my enthusiasm for turning on the game felt more like a chore, but I feel like, with adjusted expectations, I think we have plenty to look forward to.
I always think of whenever the basketball season ends, I'm like, I wish there was a Blazer game. So I'm not trying to chase the season away just because it's not as good as we might have hoped or the record's not good. I think there's still a lot to be happy and to watch for. And I think that's how a lot of people feel. I hope that's how a lot of people feel, because these players are still playing super hard. They still play every other day, you know what I mean? So I think there's still a lot to look forward to, and I think we're on the rise. Sometimes you have to hit the bottom to go up.
I mean, think about, after, 2 years ago, after the injury to Wesley Matthews, and we went into the Memphis game, but that's when CJ McCollum started to shine. And, you know, so there's always a chance that somebody's going to step up and do something big every night. And then the other thing that I've learned, especially this season, after watching a somewhat depressing Blazer game like a loss, I can watch literally any other game in the league and still feel better. Because you forget, like, when you're so focused on one team like I am, like, you watch a lot of basketball, but I'm pretty focused on one team. So I take every single miss personally, and I act like nobody else ever misses a three-pointer. And then you, like, turn and you watch any other game, and Steph's out there missing threes. Not as often, but he still misses them. LeBron James will still miss a dunk every once in a while. You know, great players and role players will get out there and do something just boneheaded. So, like, we're not the only team that makes mistakes or that's struggling, and we're still not the New York Knicks. So we got that going for us.
Man, they have a lot to work through right now.
They sure do. Well, we should probably wrap it up today. Ashley, it's been great talking to you. I always feel a little bit better about things after I've checked in with you and heard about, like, the future that's coming up, and thanks for talking to me. Do you want to tell people how to find you and find your stuff that you do?
Yeah, I have a website, but the easiest way to find me is through Twitter at WilliamsAshDawn. Same thing, Instagram handle at WilliamsAshDawn, or you can search through Blazers Edge. You can find a lot of my work there too.
Great. Yeah. And just everybody who wants to hear more from the Blazers Edge podcast, you can subscribe via Stitcher or iTunes or whatever podcast catcher you like. You could also hop on over to blazersedge.com and find all kinds of great content. Our writers are putting up new stuff every day, and you won't be disappointed in the entertainment and analysis you will find over there.